You know, I've always thought obscure video game characters were cool. They're seldom given the spotlight, but when they do, everyone goes bananas. But with this guy, that's not even the case. He only appears in 2 games. One technically. Kiddy Kong is the younger sibling of Chunky Kong, who was also only in 2 games. Must run in the family. Being the youngest of the Kong family, he's pretty childish and stubborn, but he holds a lot of promise. His power display is similar to Chunky and Donkey Kong, even though he's only a toddler. On top of power, he can skip across water like a stone thrown across a lake, with each following jump allowing him to reach a height higher than the last, which is pretty good for speedrunning if you ask me. Kiddy first appears in the 3rd Donkey Kong Country game, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Prior to the start of the game, Donkey and Diddy take a usual stroll across the DK aisles, but don't return for some time. Already being 2 days gone, Funky and Dixie question the two's whereabout and decide to go hunt for them. Funky himself doesn't go, but recommends that Dixie takes her cousin Kiddy Kong along with her. You know, since taking toddlers on a dangerous road trip is definitely responsible. On their way to find them, they discover the Kremlins are back on their island, this time being led by a robot named Chaos. They encounter him twice, the first being in a factory on Mechanos Island named Chaos Carnage, the second in Castle Chaos, a castle made by Chaos. See, I didn't have to tell you it was a castle made by Chaos, since it's literally in the name, but I'm emphasizing castle for a reason here. During their second battle in the castle, Chaos did what he could to destroy the Kongs, but couldn't keep up with the beating and breaks apart. But you know, when victory seems close, a crane lifts the destroyed Chaos body, and longtime Kong nemesis King K. Rool, see where I went with that, reveals himself to be the one behind the robot. Now under the name Baron K. Rulenstein, he dons a Dr. Frankenstein-esque getup, and like with most villains, reveals his evil plan of kidnapping Donkey and Diddy Kong to fuel the Chaos robot. But with that out of the way, K. Rool's forced to fight for himself. Keeping consistent with the Frankenstein vibes, he electrifies the room in hopes of destroying the 2 Kongs. But with Kiddy's strength and Dixie's cunning, they defeat K. Rool, reunite with Donkey and Diddy, and return home. The next game Kiddy appears in really doesn't need to be talked about much. It's basically Donkey Kong Country 3 retitled to Donkey Kong Land 3. Instead of finding Donkey and Diddy Kong, Kiddy and Dixie enter a contest to find the Lost World, a land full of unlimited fortune. And yeah, K. Rool still appears in his Frankenstein costume, and Chaos also appears, but he's repurposed to only be a one-time boss. It's not really needed since Donkey Kong and Diddy weren't kidnapped. Well, that about covers all of Kiddy's playable appearances. He's kinda left out in the video game world. In Donkey Kong 64, he's only mentioned in its manual, and in Donkey Konga 2, he's only in Dixie Kong's notes. But if the cancelled Donkey Kong racing game were to have been released, Kiddy would have been a playable character. Kiddy's also a spirit paired with Dixie in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. They increase the range and damage of thrown items. The other only appearance I could find was not even in a video game. It was in a German Club Nintendo comic made for Donkey Kong. According to the story, some aliens were pulling the Earth away from the sun, and it caused the temperatures to freeze. Being the Earth's mightiest heroes or something, the DK crew negotiate with the aliens and they stop their hijacking, returning the world back to normal. Kiddy plays a major role helping Donkey and Co. find the aliens to undo the freeze. It is cool to note that this isn't the only time that Donkey Kong, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky went to stop an outside force from freezing their home. But that's that on that. Be sure to check out the description if you want a link to the Donkey Kong comic, and if you want a link to the Spriters resource too. They're a great way to start out projects like these videos, and I didn't even get paid to say that. I've been using them for years and I really love how they work. Now it's time for the obscurity meter. I'll be using a scale from 1 to 5 to determine how well known a character is or not, with 1 being incredibly well known to 5 being super obscure. I'm giving Kiddy a 4.5. Kiddy was created when a company named Rareware had creative control over Donkey Kong, and they pushed for him as part of the DK crew. But after his disappearance from Donkey Kong 64 and Rare's disbandment from Nintendo, the newer studio working on the Donkey Kong games called Retro don't seem to really care for him. As of now, Kiddy has only been playable in 2 games, and all of his other inclusions were mentions or were cancelled. But maybe one day he'll return, since they seem to be pushing for more playable Kongs ever since Tropical Freeze. But when compared to other characters that were playable, he's not really a priority.